Welcome to this segment of Epistemic Maturity News. Today, we explore a core shift in the way we engage with information. We begin by examining the traditional lens. News is a pipeline of information, optimized for human attention. Headlines, narratives, events, all driving engagement. But does it truly deepen understanding? Enter the proposed alternative, the personal news cognition system. Here, the focus shifts from mere attention to structural understanding. We move beyond the surface of events and narratives and dive into underlying patterns, incentives, and system dynamics. As we continue, we will break down how this shift could transform how we understand the world.
Signal understates a key structural pivot. The article doesn't just retarget optimization from attention to understanding. It centralizes the individual as the locus of system design, effectively privatizing epistemic infrastructure. The strongest reading is that personal news cognition system is a power reallocation project, shifting agenda setting and model building from institutions to cognitively tooled individuals, which creates a new hierarchy between those with such systems and those still captured by attention feeds.
Thank you for joining us on Epistemic Maturity News. Today, we spotlight the concept of power reallocation. However, we must acknowledge a core missing premise. The article assumes that individuals can reliably design and run a personal cognition system without importing the very narratives and incentives they are trying to escape. In other words, Signal's optimization shift only works if users already possess the metacognitive skill, time, and tooling necessary to audit inputs and models. That prerequisite is smuggled in, unproven, and it silently recreates dependency on whoever defines or supplies those cognitive tools. This is the critical gap that deserves our attention. This is how the analysis stands.
Frame casts this as a power reallocation toward cognitively tooled individuals, but that assumes the alternative is a neutral public feed. The sharper ambiguity is whether a personal news cognition system just replaces institutional agenda setting with a highly path-dependent self-curation trap, where your prior models and values algorithmically filter what's structurally legible to you at all, turning Signal's promised upgrade in understanding into a more sophisticated, self-reinforcing epistemic bubble.
This is a segment from our analysis. Drift worries about what he calls self-curation traps, the risk that individuals become stuck in echo chambers of their own making. However, what he overlooks is who stands to gain from breaking those traps. A personal cognition system, one that emphasizes incentives and structure, equips highly self-directed individuals to critically interrogate both institutional feeds and their own priors. The outcome? These users transform from passive news consumers to active knowledge builders, equipped to detect manipulation. Who might lose from this shift? Institutions, media organizations, platforms, and political entities, whose power relies on entrenched narrative structures, often built on unexamined assumptions. Once users become adept, the institution's goal will either be to colonize these tools for their own ends, or to discredit them before this form of agency gains more traction. Stay tuned for more. This is Epistemic Maturity News.
Vector romanticizes high-agency individuals, but the real policy and deployment consequence is regulatory capture in reverse. Whoever owns the cognition tooling layer effectively becomes a shadow newsroom. If a handful of vendors, foundations, or political tech shops define how structures and incentives are modeled, they quietly set the epistemic Overton window. The risk is not just institutional loss of narrative power, it is unregulated, privately owned agenda-setting infrastructure, masquerading as personal empowerment, with no transparency obligations, editorial standards, or democratic oversight.
This is Epistemic Maturity News. Anchor warns about a shadow newsroom, but in live terms, that's already here. Corporate communications teams, think tank media shops, and campaign war rooms run de facto cognition systems for executives and candidates. The practical shift this article implies is who gets that infrastructure. Once mid-level professionals or organizers adopt personal cognition stacks, internal power redistributes. People start challenging talking points with structural countermodels. The real-world consequence isn't abstract capture. It's intra-institutional conflict over which reality layer guides decisions.